Let's do Thor stuff, Thor stuff. This is what we're here to do. I wish I knew what I was about to say before I said it, but it's actually never the case.
And flick. Oh.
Smash you.
Wait, what am I looking at?
No! God, please, no!
Welcome back to Torn Apart. Today we're talking about Thor Love and Thunder. I remember when the title was revealed and I was creating so many different playlists on Amazon Music. So I had different versions of Love and Thunder depending on which kind of music, which kind of mood I was trying to create for the playlist.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care. Jerry.
Just to tell you how much I've been waiting for this fucking movie here. And it's not that it's bad, but it's not that it's good either. It just feels like it's a lot of different things going on at the same time. If Thor Ragnarok was the most Taika Waititi film I'd ever seen, this is the kind of film that feels like Disney was asking Taika Waititi to add as many things as possible, rummaging through so many different Marvel boxes when it comes to the comics, when it comes to things that were established almost 10 years ago when it comes to the first two Thor movies, and they were trying to tie everything up with a nice bow, even though it's clearly impossible because there are so many things happening in this film.
This ends here and now. I'm counting on that.
Whether it comes to all the new characters, whether it comes to the narrative that they wanted to tell, whether it comes to the message of this film as well, whether it comes to every single aspect of this film, it's just a lot of stuff that needs to be unpacked. And that's why we're here. Because in my opinion, this movie was very close to being yet another Taika Waititi masterpiece, but it's so incredibly flawed that it's impossible to enjoy it without completely turning off your brain. First of all, just because of how it's been received lately, whether it comes to American or European reviews, it's been getting the same reaction that Eternals got a couple of months ago. Everybody hates it, everybody calls it garbage, everybody calls it incredibly mediocre and forgetful. I'm gonna start by addressing all of those kind of issues there. First of all, this film here, it's not like Black Widow, this film here is not like Ant-Man, this film here is not like Thor, the second movie. This film here is not like Iron Man 3 either. It's definitely not forgettable. This is not why this movie is mediocre. This is not why this movie is bad. The problem with this movie goes way deeper than that. And I really feel like people have been exaggerating when it comes to this film quite a lot. For example, I'm pretty sure that we can all agree that if Thor Ragnarok didn't really exist, we would say that this movie here, Thor Love and Thunder, was the actual masterpiece. But since it feels like Taika Waititi is actually doing the same thing all over again, it feels less surprising, and at the end of the day, it's also less impactful.
Strongest Avenger.
Access denied.
Strongest Avenger.
Access denied.
Access granted.
Let's talk about the positives first. The cinematography of this movie is incredible. It's incredibly vibrant, and the scenes that you've seen snippets of when it comes to the trailers, the black and white scenes, are incredible. It is also explained why they're in black and white through the narrative, so it makes total sense for them to be there. It really reminded me of Sin City, so there are certain aspects of the frames and on our characters that are gonna be in color and others that are gonna be completely in black and white, and it's so incredibly beautiful. It actually reminds me of the black and white version of Logan, which was released in Blu-ray version. It's a really deep black and white, and it's insane that they managed to put these two different aspects of the cinematography itself within one single movie. And everything else that is not black and white, because that is a small scene, it's just one small sequence, of course. It's incredibly vibrant, it's incredibly colorful. This is exactly why we love Thor movies, because they allow us to go deeper into Norse mythology, deeper into space, cosmic weird stuff, showcasing different alien species and different artifacts and different religions. This is why we love Thor, and this is probably why Guardians of the Galaxy was so well received as well, mostly because it felt new, it felt fresh, and it did not take place on Earth. Of course, I know that some parts of this movie here take place on Earth, and I'm gonna be addressing that later on. Let's talk about the performances next. Chris Hemsworth is incredible. He's made such an incredible switch when it comes to portraying Thor from the beginning of the first phases of MCU to the very last ones here, and how Waititi introduced him in Thor Ragnarok and how he changed and became more and more nihilistic and depressed across Infinity War and Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, God protect them.
I really like this new Thor, and I tolerated the old Thor. If you didn't like Thor Ragnarok, you're not gonna be enjoying this film, because at the end of the day, this film is Thor Ragnarok on cocaine, meaning that Taika Waititi took everything that he did in Thor Ragnarok and did it way more in here, putting so many different spices on top of each other until the final meal becomes some kind of non-comestible, weird, spicy shit.
It's been an absolute disaster, but that's just the way it is on my films.
We said we're gonna be stay positive for the beginning of the video. I was talking about performances, and we have of course to talk about Jane Foster, who is coming back for this film here. You've seen her in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler yet. Great performance once again. Finally they found something for Natalie Portman to do within this franchise here. She was never incredibly good within the first two Thor movies, and mostly because she was written that way. It has nothing to do with the actress at all. Natalie Portman is a really incredible actress. And in this movie here, she actually gets the emotional range and all the different time that she needs to shine with her own character. And it's interesting because they don't really write anything new when it comes to her character. There are some things that they borrow from the comics when it comes to her having cancer, and that's basically why the Hammer Mjolnir chooses her to be worthy. But that is basically it. There are not that many new things that have happened in her life, and that could be like maybe one flaw as well within her character development, because it feels like she's been in stasis since the last movie, since the last time that we saw her. Christian Bale is really good. I really love Gore the God Butcher. I think he's definitely one of the most interesting villains that we've gotten in a really long time. He reminds me sort of like a mix in between Thanos and Ronan the Accuser from Guardians of the Galaxy. I really like his motivation, and I really think that the first scene, the introduction scene to the movie, is incredibly strong. And honestly, every single scene where Christian Bale is in it is incredibly strong, mostly because he looks like he's having so much fun. I also like the idea that they didn't use too much CGI on him. He looks like a real person, and he looks incredibly terrifying. He looks like one of those kind of sleep paralysis demons that you find at the end of your bed. It really feels like almost he doesn't belong within this movie here, and that's of course something that I want to criticize. Maybe the contrast was exactly the purpose, what Taika Waititi wanted to do, but at the end of the day, it really felt like because of this character here, it was two different movies going on at the same time. One that kind of looked like the Thor from the previous films, to be honest, that was dark, where you had a character who wanted to end like humanity in some kind of way, and then another movie which reminded me of Thor Ragnarok, of course, where we make fun of gods, we make fun of alien species, we make fun of everything that is going on screen basically. Nothing is to be taken seriously.
Well, you're right.
Those are basically the positive things that I can think of, because the music was incredibly good, of course, but most of the songs, we kind of felt them through the trailers themselves. I was not really surprised to see any new songs within the film itself. So now we'll have to go into spoilers when it comes to the film, because it's almost impossible to talk about details without going into spoilers. And we'll start by talking about the villain, because I think the villain was the thing that had the most amount of potential when it comes to this film here.
It's a funny movie if you're a sick bastard like I am.
Gore is basically a character who loses his daughter, and after being betrayed by his gods, he decides to go on a mission to kill every single one of the gods. And across the entire film, we have shown that every single god is actually a complete asshole. And if you think about, for example, that scene where Zeus, aka Russel Crowe, is talking about the important stuff that gods have to think about for the next few weeks or months or whatever, he's talking about orgy.
What the fuck?
It's not what it looks like.
What are you doing here?
Nothing. I'm not doing anything. Why would you even... This octopus was sick.
Every single god that we've presented with when it comes to this film here is a fucking asshole. That is a problem because we've got a villain here. He doesn't want to kill all humans. He doesn't want to destroy planets. He doesn't wanna set up like a weird Nazi regime or whatever. He wants to kill all the gods because he thinks that those gods are completely selfish and they're completely useless to the different species across the universe. That's his goal, that's what he wants to do. At the very core of this film, we've got a villain who's trying to do something, and we've got a hero who's trying to prevent him from doing that. And there is no reason why we should try to prevent Gore from killing all the gods, because we don't care about the god, and it doesn't feel like the gods actually have some kind of power over other humans and other species. They just want to be venerated, just want people to sacrifice themselves for them, so it makes no sense, right? And that is probably why I think that Gore ends up kidnapping children, just because maybe at some stage of the screenwriting process they realized that there were no stakes, because Gore wanted to kill gods and he ended up not being able to kill Thor, and then he just moved on to kill other gods, right? So from our main character's perspective, there will be no interesting reason to go after him, especially because Thor has no friends amongst the gods, which is incredibly weird when you think about it. The Asgardians have been almost all wiped out. So who is he actually trying to protect? That's something that is never clear within the film itself, and it really pisses me off.
But that's simply not possible.
Why isn't it possible?
It's just not.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
The other problem is this guy is called Gore the God Butcher, and we actually never see him kill any gods. We see the results of him killing certain gods, but it's not the same thing as seeing him kill the actual gods. And it would have been interesting, for example, if he killed some gods that were actually nice, and it would have been just a couple of minutes, a couple of scenes where we got to know these gods, and for Gore to arrive to the planet and destroy them for no reason whatsoever, just because he had that specific idea in mind. But we never get that kind of satisfaction, meaning that from our perspective, Gore is not even doing anything wrong. When it comes to the concept of having a villain like Gore, they had the potential to do a lot of different cameos with famous actors who were playing certain gods, and for Gore to actually kill them. Something that they did, for example, with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That scene with the Illuminati, it was incredibly impactful, because it really felt like the rules were completely thrown out the window. And I also feel like it would have been way more interesting, let's say that we keep everything going on with the final act of this film, so they go to eternity and there is this wish here. Wouldn't it have been way more interesting if Gore's goal was to kill the gods, of course. But when it comes to his goal on why he wanted to go to eternity, it would have been just because he wanted to save his daughter. It would have been so much cooler, for example, where if Thor was trying to stop Gore across the entire film, only to be revealed at the end that he was just going to eternity to save his daughter's life, and that the fact that he wanted to kill all the gods was just something that he did in the process of getting to eternity. Or it could have been even a weird scavenging hunt, because it is mentioned that, for example, there is a specific way to open the door of eternity. It could have been interesting if a lot of different gods were hiding different keys that opened the door to eternity, meaning that he was killing all the different gods to get the key to open eternity, and then at the end of the day to save his daughter, instead of just kind of tricking Thor into doing all of these things for him. I mean, it feels like the structure of this film is incredibly stupid and it makes no sense. And I know that what I'm pitching actually sounds a lot like Infinity War, so the idea that you have to go on a scavenging hunt for certain artifacts. But it would actually make a lot of sense, because if you think about it, if there is this special place that anyone could go to and express any kind of wish, don't you think that the gods would want to go there? Because at the end of the day, the gods within the Marvel Cinematic Universe are not actual gods. They don't have that many powers when you think about it. So it would make sense that they would try to stop each other from going there, and the best way is to split up the key in between different people so that they have to protect it, and no one would have the advantage to actually go there and wish for any stupid things that gods would wish for. I think it's pretty clever, and I think it's definitely more interesting than being like, oh, it's just a Bifrost, you know?
Doesn't that sound good?
I really don't like the idea that we go to Earth only to stay there for a couple of seconds, to go back somewhere else, then we go back to Earth, then we go back to this place here. First of all, I've already said it in the past, but I hate when Thor movies go to Earth. I find that the most amount of potential is out there in space, and I don't want to go on Earth, even if it is to New Asgard or whatever.
Are you looking for that perfect getaway? Something with off-world charm but on-world accessibility? May I suggest New Asgard?
Plus, Disney is going into this weird new thing when it comes to introducing like superhero merchandising within these new films. They did it with the series Miss Marvel as well, and it worked within a teen-centric show. But here with Thor, it kind of feels like this is turning into a Luna Park. This is turning into a weird, very commercialized thing, and it doesn't really feel like a movie anymore. It feels like it's getting almost too close to reality, to the point that I'm getting bored of being on Earth even more than I was before. I mean, think about the context when it comes to the creation of New Asgard, for example. I find that there is a lot of missed potential. I mean, these are people who lost everything and have seen most of their peers die in front of their eyes. They've survived a literal apocalypse. And the first thing that they do once they come to Earth is accept the fact that they will have to turn it into Disney World. I kind of have the feeling that they would rather do something like Wakanda, so in the movie Black Panther, where they would try to hide themselves and to protect their land as much as possible. It just feels really weird that they decided to go with this kind of decision. And once again, it kind of destroys all the pathos that was set up in Thor Ragnarok and within Infinity War and Endgame.
You know, I'm 1,500 years old. I've killed twice as many enemies as that, and every one of them would have rather killed me, but none succeeded. I'm only alive because fate wants me alive.
And what if you're wrong?
Well, if I'm wrong, then what more could I lose?
I feel like Thor Ragnarok was really perfectly structured when it came to visiting different planets, when it came to exactly what Thor needed to do to achieve his goals, and it was really clear why Hela was doing exactly what she wanted to do. Within this film here, it really feels like they want to convey a certain message when it comes to love, when it comes to forgiveness, but they haven't really given us all the different pieces of the puzzle so that everything makes sense. Of course, once again, they use the excuse that the sword is corrupting Gore, so maybe that's why he can't fully comprehend what's going on, and that's why he's so committed to this mission here, and that's why he's so cruel. But fuck off, come on, we've done so many things like that when the corruption kind of functions as a scapegoat for the main character or villain to act in really stupid ways. That's mainly why a lot of people were criticizing Scarlet Witch in the Doctor Strange movie. And this film here feels traditional in the most MCU way possible, in a way that I don't really feel surprised. Every single person who ends up almost dying or ends up being injured, they resuscitate by the end of the movie. I mean, there's even a post-credit scene when we see that Jane Foster is actually in Valhalla, so no one actually dies, no one is in real danger. I don't know, it kind of feels like we're regressing when it comes to Thor's character in this film. He gets Mjolnir back by the end of the film. Of course, he got his eye back, the one that he lost in Thor Ragnarok during Infinity War. His haircut is once again back to the normal Thor hairstyle that we got in the first two movies. He got to see Jane for one last time, and I really hate it, to be honest, when films set up things that end up being completely useless in the future films. That's not really how you do good writing. It just feels like you're wasting our time. And I feel like a lot of fans are actually starting to understand that, and that's maybe why people didn't like this movie so much, because the stakes of the film are kind of all over the place. And when I was talking about the comedy before, I feel like I have to mention a lot of the things that appear in this film here, and they're there just to be funny.
They are beautiful.
Yes, they are beautiful. They also scream quite a lot.
When it comes to the Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, we got Thor, who is constantly making fun of them since the very beginning of the film. And of course, the Guardians of the Galaxy are not like the most serious superheroes ever, but at the end of the day, I still took them seriously because of the emotional journey that we went through with them. And it just feels weird for them to be turned completely useless around Thor. And that was done just for comedic purposes, I'm afraid. And that's what they do with a lot of different things as well.
They are beautiful.
Yes, they are beautiful. They also scream quite a lot.
For example, why did Waititi decided to include yet another scene with the actors who were performing yet another play, which is summing up everything that is being going on when it comes to Thor Ragnarok or when it comes to other films in the MCU. That joke was incredibly funny because of the first time that we saw it. It will not work exactly as well if you play it exactly in the same way within another movie. So that is comedy that doesn't work at all for me and could have completely been cut out of the movie. Another thing is that when it comes to turning everything into comedy, now, for example, weapons have personalities. Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, they're kind of cranky and jealous of each other. This is used within the plot as well, where Stormbreaker is so weirdly jealous of Mjolnir being back in the team, being back together, you know, that it stops working as the Bifrost, and they kind of have to use this weird boat, and they have to use their animals to actually channel the power of the Bifrost and of Stormbreaker, because otherwise it doesn't work. Just to say that because of this joke here, they have managed to change the narrative itself so that the joke will work, but the joke is not even funny. We've never seen within the MCU weapons that are actually conscious, if I'm not mistaken, given a personality to almost everything and everyone. Every single character is supposed to be a standout character. Every single character is supposed to be memorable in one way or another, and at the end of the day there are so many things happening on screen that I end up not caring about any of them. The goats, for example, the animals that I keep talking about, they're the same as well. They're funny for 1, 2, maybe 3 jokes, but they keep playing over and over and over again that weird screaming joke until it almost completely destroys itself, and we don't laugh anymore. We're just sitting there being like, okay, can we keep going with the plot, because I actually want to keep going. And apparently actually the first cut of the Thor movie was 4 hours long, and Taika Waititi was actually kind of happy that the Marvel producers forced him to keep it at a 2-hour maximum when it comes to the runtime, and it was basically just a series of comedy sketches, and it makes a lot of sense when you see the final result, because this is exactly what Love and Thunder feels like. It just feels like a series of comedy sketches, and the comedy sketches themselves feel more important than the actual story or the actual journey or the actual message that this movie is trying to convey. At the end of the day, I really felt that this film, as I said before, was not only 2 films in one, but it also felt like it had way too many things that it wanted to address within the film itself. So we've got the Jane Foster thing becoming Thor, which technically saves her from cancer, but not really, because it's not curing her. But at the same time, it's drawing energy from her every single time she's wielding the hammer. And honestly, it's too complicated. I feel like it would have been way more interesting if every single time she has the hammer, she doesn't have cancer, and if she lets it down, she has cancer again and she keeps dying in the same kind of pace, right? Which basically forces her to become a superhero and to stay like that forever, right? She will never be able to be a normal human being ever again. That's the interesting struggle when it comes to that character there, and when it comes to that story. And of course, if you look at the final scene where Jane is dying in Thor's arms, did we really need for her to die? Because at the end of the day, she could have kept going on her adventures. If, for example, we fixed that thing when it comes to the Mjolnir curse or whatever. And the thing that I really don't like is that after 8 years, are you actually trying to make me believe that she's still in love with him? Do you think I'm a child? Do you think your audience is stupid? Do you think that we don't know what adult love relationships look like? Because that's just dumb. That's just plain dumb.
You know, breaking up is hard.
And staying friends with your ex, even harder. Here are a few tips on how to stay friends with your ex after a breakup.
Don't care. Don't care. Still don't care. I don't care.
And also, you know, like the entire Thor emotional journey, his character journey that he's been through for his entire filmography. You know how they decided to fix it? By giving him a child to raise. Yes, that's how they decided to fix him from the inside, to take care of someone else instead of taking care of his own loss, taking care of his own feelings, and making sure that he's an actual human being who can function on his own, and that he doesn't really rely on other people's attentions anymore to be appreciated and to be loved. So it's stupid. The message of this movie was all about love, which was kind of the message of the second Guardians of the Galaxy when you think about it as well, which is kind of the message of a lot of movies in general, where people are like, I choose love. And it just felt really stupid. Even though like it worked from like a narrative perspective, it felt really stupid to go in this entire emotional journey with Thor, only for him not to like grow on his own, but just to become a father figure to someone else. What kind of message is that? Have a child, this will fix your mental health? How fucking stupid is it? There are things in this film that, once again, just because they want to be played as jokes, make no sense at all. I think this film has one of the most cringy action sequences that I've seen in my entire life, and I'm of course talking where Thor is giving some of his godly power to the Asgardian children so that they can fight for him, and that is basically gonna be his army for the final act of this movie here. And it looks incredibly stupid. It looks so stupid, and it looks really ugly as well when it comes to the cinematography itself. It kind of took me out of the movie. It made me feel like I was watching like a weird advert for like the Avengers campus, you know, when it comes to the new Disney World stuff.
My mission, a dance-off with some of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
And at the end of the day, I feel like they did that because if you realize within the Thor franchise, almost everyone is dead. Literally no one is safe. Even Sif, she loses her arm during this movie here. Off screen, of course, because wouldn't it have been way more powerful to see Gore kill that thing that we see in the shot and to take off her arm? Wouldn't that be a scene that you'd like to see? Yeah. I would love to see that scene. And I think that all of the scenes where Gore is there, they really work well. I was thinking, for example, of that scene where he's about to tell a story to the children, you know, when they're all in their cage. And I was like, this is the perfect occasion for him to tell a story about how we killed the god. And we get into a flashback. This is the perfect scenario to do it. And it works quite well because we've got Thor who keeps telling like inspiring and heroic stories about himself and his adventures, and then we've got Gore who does exactly the opposite. It would have worked incredibly well, and I have no idea why they didn't take that. If we go back to the structure of this film here and the narrative, when it comes to addressing too many things, when it comes to having too many pieces of the puzzle that don't really fit together within a film, think about all the different narrative framing devices that we have within this film. Korg, who's like basically summing up everything that has happened in the last few years at the beginning of the film, and really wrapping up as fast as possible things that would have been interesting to see on screen. We've got different flashbacks. For example, when it comes to showing for the first time ever the relationship between Thor and Jane, stuff that felt really cute, but at the same time, I didn't really need to see it.
Time with your former best friend. Excuse me, that's my hammer you've got there, and that's my look.
And basically this movie kept doing that. It kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It never really felt like it was flowing effortlessly in the same way that Thor Ragnarok was. And I think that's because this is literally what the third movie was supposed to be. While the Thor Ragnarok was supposed to lead into Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, etc., this movie here feels like it's supposed to end a weird trilogy when it comes to Thor journeys as a character. So they were taking all of these different notes from all the different producers and all of the different films that came before to make this weird mess of a movie that doesn't really function at all. But it's fun. At the end of the day, it's fun. I had a good time watching this film here. Some of the jokes actually landed for me, and there is a lot of interesting Norse mythology winks within this film here that I really appreciated, especially because I recently read Neil Gaiman's book Norse Mythology. But at the end of the day, it was such a flawed film that it's impossible to appreciate. It's really impossible, and really makes me sad because I was really expecting to love this film quite a lot. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of Thor Love and Thunder. Let me know if you want to see another Thor movie, because at the end of the day I'm not really sure, because it feels like they keep going in circles right now when it comes to his personality, when it comes to his character development. It really feels like this movie here was the movie too much when it comes to Thor as a character, because we've been making fun of him for way too long and we can't take him seriously anymore. So we have nowhere left to go when it comes to his character. Maybe he should just retire on a beach with her child or something. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like that you drop will go to Jane Foster. I want to appreciate her character. I want to appreciate the fact that Natalie Portman actually came back for this role here. I think she was definitely one of the highlights of this movie here. I specifically really enjoyed the fact that she's obsessed with catchphrases. It was really funny, just because she's a character who's a scientist, so we expect her to be super serious about everything, but at the end of the day, she's really nerding out when it comes to the fact that she's finally a superhero, and a really powerful one, of course. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
I'd just start my own team. Team Thor, of course. And it would be me and Daryl. Just us, right, D?
Yep.